President Trump is no stranger to adversity. He's used to taking shots from CNN, MSNBC, NBC, Politico, and it happens on a daily basis. But what if something so awful was published, something so horrendous that even President Trump wouldn't want to stop it? I'm going to go through what that means. Probably doesn't make sense to you right now, and it really shouldn't, until I outline to you what it was. And then you'll understand specifically why no one should want to stop it. And that's the story I'll bring you in 1 minute. So how bad is bad? It's really tough to define when you're discussing Politico and CNN and NBC and MSNBC, at least as their name is now, because it's a race for the worst. And the only way I could define it for you is just to show you the last week or so, because they're falling into disarray. They can't come up with any stories. Their storylines are falling apart, and now they're exposing themselves more and more so on a daily basis. And it should be readily apparent to the average viewer, but of course I'm going to take just a few moments here to illustrate it for you. This is Politico, who we're going to start with, because the news is so critical that one of their stories they covered last week was inside DNC's money problems. Major Democratic donors have withheld money this year amid skepticism about the party's direction. Well, no crap, Sherlock. Because what happened with all the money that everyone gave to Kamala, that the DNC is now covering $20 million for, what does that mean? Where the funds go? Specifically, you wonder why the funds are drying up? I mean, your message is so powerful in the DNC. That's right, because you just started your summer meetings by doing a land acknowledgement for the land that allegedly was stolen. Oh no, I can't make it up. Here's Ken Martin, the DNC chair. And when we wonder why you're having so many issues.
The Dakota people, who are the original stewards of the lands and waters of Minneapolis. The Dakota cared for the lands, lakes, and the Wapatonka, the Great River, the Mississippi River, for thousands of years before colonization. This land was not claimed or traded. It's a part of a history of broken treaties and promises. And in many ways, we still...
But remember, this is a race for the worst. And when you're going to do a race for the worst, there's always one person who should be in the lead. And that is, of course, the representative himself, Tim Walz, who goes on his own rant.
Think of how easy it would be to be a damn Republican. Oh, what should I wear today? This stupid freaking red hat. What should I say today? I don't know. Just make sure it's cruel. Who do we listen to? That guy. Oh, the felon in the White House? Yeah, listen to him and that will be fine. Now he's talking about burning flags. He's going to have flag burning or whatever. Because he knows there's a hell of a lot of flags with his picture on it that are going to get burned.
That's the DNC. That's the Democrat Party. That's who Politico's attempting to defend. Once you represent that, and your publication will start to suffer. Of course it will. And when you have the likes of Josh Gerstein on your side, who works for Politico, covering hard-hitting articles like the arrest that many of you saw now. But it was the explanation given that will go to explain exactly why mainstream media is struggling so much. You saw the video. Officer Josh Gerstein tries to explain or understand why this man was thrown to the ground. I mean, prosecutors refused to prosecute. The wife dropped the charges. Cases note that the victim and her mother did not wish to move forward. A spokesperson for Fairfax County, California, offers his comment on why the charges were dropped. So why was he thrown to the ground? Although in Josh Gerstein's own post, he points out to the fact that he has a final order for removal. He's here illegally. He's entered the U.S. illegally 3 times. He was arrested and he was charged with aggravated sexual battery. But that's not enough. But Politico doesn't even qualify for the worst of the mainstream media outlets. Oh no, just ignore the fact that the man, of course, tried to run from law enforcement afterwards. Let's skip all that for a moment. Let's move forward onto further defenses that they give, like Donald Trump took over DC's police. Why is the city's mayor just sitting back and doing nothing? Or why are the people not flooding the streets to protest Trump? Because that's what the mainstream media does now. But when Trump calls it a political arm of the Democrat Party, you're not allowed to do that. But they love Gavin Newsom, don't they? Their golden child. With an inescapable, smash-mouth, all-caps laden and meme-filled ex-account, California Governor Gavin Newsom is holding a mirror up to MAGA, and MAGA doesn't like what it sees. They're almost gushing, aren't they? But they're not a representative of one party. No, they are equal opportunity offenders. In no way, shape, or form. But that's only Politico. Because we have 3 other publications till we get to the winner of the worst of the worst. And why would Trump want to stop any of this? I wouldn't if I were him. I would just let it all flow forward, because what he's doing is he's exposing them like he did the Democrats. Well, for their lack of substance and their lack of concern for we the people. But we got so much to cover today and so little time, so I want to thank you all again for checking, to assure you're still subscribed. Your bell is checked to all, for joining as a member, for providing super thanks, for simply putting a comment, for sharing the videos. The channel is taking off, and thank you for that. For those of you who've made it to Restricted Republic, join the family over there. We're going to continue this podcast on to, well, Trump may have just pushed his MAGA base too far. Well, at least on one executive order, because they are firing back strong. We're going to cover a few of the executive orders he launched yesterday in great detail. If you want to understand a little bit more about what he did about cashless bail, not an exciting topic, but an important one. And then the flag burning topic, which put everybody into an absolute tailspin, is what we're going to cover later today. And again, thank you all for the support you give in the channel. And I want to give a special thanks to Chapter for supporting the channel. Man, if you haven't called them yet, do you know millions of Americans are on the wrong plan and don't even know it? And that phone number, 805-619-5011, is a free phone call. And in under 20 minutes, you could find out if you're on the right plan or the wrong plan. If you're on the right plan, great. No harm, no foul. In under 20 minutes, you'll find out. But if you're on the wrong plan, and you could be saving money, the average person who makes that phone call saves $1,100 a year. My audience already saved thousands. That's right. Most people under 20 minutes find out if they're on the right plan or the wrong plan with a free phone call, talking to a live person. I don't know if I can give you a better deal today. I'd love you to call Chapter right now. Again, 805-619-5011. And yes, folks, it's that easy. They're licensed Medicare professionals. It's why I teamed up with them, why I found them, and why I love to give you a service that's free so you can save money. I don't know if I could bring you anything better today outside of the video we're about to finish. So where were we? We were at NBC News, number 2 in our list today, having a little fun with the mainstream media. In recent weeks, the Trump administration has targeted Democrat officials over allegations of mortgage fraud. Targeted? What if they committed mortgage fraud? That's not targeting. A new front in an effort to undermine critics. If they committed something illegal, they should be prosecuted. That's a pretty easy concept, because you had no trouble whatsoever doing that to President Trump, now did you? But I guess it's just because they're critics, not because they did something illegal. Well, thankfully, Trump and J.D. Vance have no problem destroying their critics now, do they? Did you hear what J.D. Vance did to NBC correspondent Kristen Welker? Because if you didn't, man, you can't afford to miss this one.
Of course, people who are here and who are not documented are not eligible to vote. But
they're not eligible to vote, but they do go in the congressional apportionment. That's why California has so many more seats, is because they count illegal aliens. So even though they don't vote, well, some of them actually do vote, but hopefully most of them don't.
And hence why Trump wants to run a new census. Because if they're counted in the census, which they were, and California gets more seats, which they did, is that fair to we the people? But J.D. Vance wasn't done.
We had way fewer House seats than we should have. One, if the Democrats hadn't aggressively gerrymandered, and two, if illegal aliens weren't counted in the census for purposes of apportioning congressional seats. You have to ask yourself, why have Democrats gerrymandered their states aggressively over the past 10 to 20 years? If you look, for example, at the popular vote in a lot of these states, and Massachusetts, where 32% of the residents of Massachusetts voted for Republicans, 0 Republican federal representatives. So,
man, where'd you hear that statistic before? I know if you've been watching the channel, you knew that statistic. And hence NBC News, no matter how hard they try to flip over the administration, they lose. And J.D. Vance helped them lose. And they lose on their own without even the help of J.D. Vance. Just like this hard-hitting article, Home Depot becomes prime location for immigration enforcement. The sight of mass federal agents in tactical gear descending on Home Depots across Southern California is forcing undocumented day laborers to weigh earnings badly needed income against the risk of being arrested or deported. Nothing about the fact that they're here illegally. NBC News, you earned your spot in the top 4 worst publications of the week. But don't worry, because you're slightly outdone by the New York Times, Peter Baker, who went after the president for stating that citing a non-existent crime crisis in Washington, D.C., well, that was on August 11th, only to be outdone by himself. Oh, I'm not making it up. A few days later on August 17th, then stating that Trump did not send his patrols to the right place because they're not where the crime is. But just days prior, he stated it was a non-existent crime crisis. Oh, it's this easy, folks. This is why I tell you to be very cautious when watching mainstream media. It is what benefits them for the day, but not to be outdone by themselves. Of course, the New York Times also published this article. And thankfully, you watch Restricted Republic, so you know the truth behind this, that Zelensky and European leaders pushed Trump for security guarantees. But Trump pushed Putin for security guarantees for Ukraine at his summit. Zelensky and European leaders had nothing to do with it. Just, making sure you got that clear. But remember, we told you that little Zelensky just wanted the backing of the EU, so now he's asking for allowance to the tune of $1 billion a month for his war effort so he can buy U.S. weapons to continue his war effort. Is this sick and disturbing? Well, don't worry, we're not even to the most sick and disturbing part yet, because CNN and MSNBC have to come into the mix. CNN, who comes out and states, Abby Phillips, that think about the fact that you have a phalanx of European leaders getting on planes at a moment's notice to flock to Washington to give Zelensky backup in this meeting with Trump. And it reflects a deep worry about Trump's decision-making. That's a level of concern that I think some people say hasn't been demonstrated since 9/11. What does 9/11 have to do with European leaders coming to the White House to back up Zelensky? Not just asking for a friend. That's what happens when you have no journalistic integrity or ability whatsoever. And that's how they make my job so easy to be able to point this out to you and have a little fun today. But don't worry, because little Brian Stelter, he makes it even easier. Because the likes of CNN and MSNBC and NBC and ABC, who controlled the press room for many, many years under the Biden administration, is now complaining because the press room's been open to other journalists, that MAGA online personalities dominate the QA. Oh, I'm sorry, Brian. Did you actually just not get to control every question and hand Biden the questions ahead of time with your picture and name on it because he couldn't remember? That's so bad for you, isn't it? Almost as bad as Dana Bash, who doesn't know simple facts about the structure of the United States, such as this one.
But political families have run that town, and they've run it into the ground. And some of the
So why not
nicest
send
people in
National
the
Guard
world
troops there? It's a red state.
It's not a federally created environment. Washington, D.C. is a federally created environment. It is our nation's capital.
Dana Bash getting Tennessee and Washington, D.C. confused as to not being the same structure. Tennessee being a state and Washington, D.C. being a federally created environment. So, Dana, we understand. Again, it's facts and figures. And you and Wolf Blitzer, who was afraid by the National Guard being there. This is what I saw when I drove to Washington, D.C.'s Union Station this morning. Terrified Wolf Blitzer. But this is the level as we raced to the worst of what was put out last week. This is the depth of journalism that we got to experience last week. 78, oh wait, I'm sorry. This was headline story also put out. I can't even make this up anymore. By CNN.
Dating apps can be brutal. Many of you who use them say you're fed up. A Forbes survey finds that 78% of dating app users felt emotionally, mentally, or physically exhausted by them. So what's fueling the frustration? Well, politics is part of it. MAGA and other ideologies shape the outlook of some of the people you might.
You MAGA folk out there are ruining dating apps. That was on CNN. You MAGA folks are rooting dating apps. Actually, I would contest that you MAGA folks are probably the only interesting people on dating apps, but it was this easy. But taking top spot, by far, over everyone else, was MSDNC, or MSNBC, or now, MS Now, announcing that they're renaming themselves because they realized that they were such a joke that even their top spot broadcaster can't put any energy behind the name change, because this is how much of a joke it actually is. Because here's Joe Scarborough trying to put some energy, some fan-freaking-tastic spin behind the name change, and faltering miserably.
All right, we have breaking news as it pertains to our network. This morning, a new name for the network by the end of the year. We will become MS Now, which stands for My Source for News, Opinion, and the World. And look, Andrew, they even have a graphic up. I like
there it is.
Actually,
the new logo.
It looks very.
Did you believe him? Did you believe there was any excitement there whatsoever? I hope you didn't. I truly hope you didn't. But not to be outdone. Of course, never to be outdone. Lawrence O'Donnell, joining in the MSNBC glory, decides to debunk Trump again by showing how much Union Station has not changed by illustrating through documented evidence that Trump has done nothing to fix D.C. Oh, wait for it.
Chief of Staff Stephen Miller spoke longer than the vice president did in their opening remarks when they all made a clownish visit to Union Station in Washington, D.C., the iconic Amtrak railroad station through whose glass doors Jimmy Stewart first saw the Capitol Dome when he arrived in Washington in Frank Capra's classic film, Mr. Smith Goes to Washington.
Heavy hitting journalism. So we're supposed to believe that Lawrence O'Donnell just proved there's no crime in D.C. by offering up evidence that there was no National Guard troops that appeared in the 1939 Jimmy Stewart film. Folks, it would be strange if it wasn't true. Almost as strange as MSNBC host Jonathan Capehart saying he's so sick of the snowflakes who are losing their mind over Cracker Barrel's changes. There are so many things that offend them coming from Jonathan Capehart, who gets offended by everything. Defending the Cracker Barrel, crap per barrel, that was probably more appropriate logo change that seems to have offended everybody by MSNBC, who will go down in history as known as the MSNBC guest, to America, a bellicose country built on capitalism, rapes, and murder. No, none of this was made up. None of this was fake or fraudulent. This is the reality of what just happened last week. Sick and disturbing. I forgot the honorable mention of Daily Mail, who's still covering Trump's hand concerns. Now, why is this happening, you might ask yourself? Because Trump has left a void. He has torn away their entire fabric of existence. Their fake reality has been stripped from underneath them, and they're trying to create some faux reality in its wake, and they can't. So what are they left with? Nothingness. What will it devolve into? Hatred, divide, and you'll see that is the next phase. I'll illustrate it as we move forward, because that is the most concerning part that will come next. What will they create to fill the void? And as we get into the midterm elections, I promise you, because they have no Democrats left, they have no party left, they have no one standing for anything right now, and they have to fill their airwaves with something. And I just showed you what they filled it with over the last week, which was nothing. My friends, it's scary times, but I'm not going to let it go unspoken, because we have some other concerns now to go into, because Trump himself may have just a little bit divided his own party. Because the thing I love about MAGA and Trump supporters is we don't let our own side get away with anything, like the Democrats do. Now, if you make a mistake, we'll let you know. And the mistake and the executive order that caused all kinds of fury yesterday was the flag burning argument. So we're going to go into that, and we're going to go into the cashless bail argument, and I'll go through all the details of it and show you why both are actually rather incendiary. So you understand all the details of it. We'll do that over at Restricted Republic. If you're already there, you'll click over to the next video. I love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, signing out. And by the way, if there was a worse article you saw, a worse headline, put it in the comments below. Put a link to the article, because I'd love to see it, because maybe they'll make next week's dishonorable mention if we find enough of them. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justice Knight, signing out.